Alrighty, race fans. Well, welcome back to another edition of the Workbench. Today, we're going to try to do a little tutorial on putting together a Super 7. And we've got Tim here from Bodies by Tim, helps me out from now and then. He's going to be Mr. Hands for the video. We've got all of our parts out here. We've got the chassis, magnet clip, hangers, shoes, springs, front end set, magnets, rear axle guide pins, and motors. So there's a couple things we've pre-positioned here. The axles are put together for the most part. Rear axles, most of that's done. Put the pinions on the motors, but we'll start in and try to get you some close-ups on what we do here. Alright, we're going to start to put the guide pins in. And one thing I always do with these guide pins, I put a little oil on the shank, and that helps a lot to get the pin in the car without really fighting very much with it. So I would recommend that. Just a drop, doesn't take much. Alright, I've got a kind of a special set of nose pliers that I like for this part of the assembly, and it's essentially kind of a two-step process. You snap it in the first detent and then go and grab it at a kind of a flat angle to pull it in the rest of the way. That way you're not fighting trying to get that pin to go all the way in one fell swoop. And this is the same sort of technique that you'd use for Viper or Scale Auto or Bulldog.
Right?
Yep. Alright, then generally for the next operation, after I get the guide pins in, I get the front axle on the car. So whatever type of axle system that you decide to use, at least press one hub on one end of the axle and then insert it into the chassis and pop the other hub on. And when we, or at least when I put them together, I leave just a touch of side-to-side play. The cars really run better when you have just a little dab of side play, and they're not, you know, just jam up against the side of the chassis. Okay, the next step is getting the shoe hanger into the chassis, and one problem with any of these Super G Plus or Tomy style shoe hangers is the little window. The little window back here needs a little tweak going this way, and when it's in the car, it will greatly help keeping the shoes in, and we'll come back to this once we start putting shoes in. I think it'll be kind of obvious, but what Tim's doing right now is he's putting about a 20-degree tweak in that shoe and that window, and basically what that does is push that window towards the front of the car this way. So instead of that window being straight up and down, it's got a slight kink to it. And when the shoe hook is in, it keeps the hook from unloading, because a lot of times you can get in a crash and the shoes will pop out. You put that little kink in that hanger window, and it really helps keep your shoes on. I'm not sure who originally started it, but probably, you know, some kind of hopper racing way back when they were running Super G Plus 20 years ago. Probably was you know, somebody was having problems and somebody figured out, hey, let's try this and see if it works. So pretty much in any of the pro racing circles or whatever, if you're running any style of G car, you tweak your hangers to keep the shoes from popping out. So I try to do that on any G style car that I build, Viper, Bulldog, and then now for Super 7. So we're going to Alright, so now that we got our hangers bent, we're going to pop them in the chassis. And it's a bit fiddly in a way. The more dexterous your fingers are, the better it is. Tim's got some big mitts, but he manages to get it done. And I'll get involved here. And I kind of, if I can get the feeling here, get it set, and I'll use my thumb to kind of press it in, and then once I get it in on the back side, I'll get my other fingernail to kind of get the hanger in. It's almost a two-finger process. Alright, so now we're getting ready to get the motor in the car. And when you get these motors, the contacts, as you can kind of see, they're straight up and down. So what we have to do is create sort of a bunny ear situation like you would have on a Viper M bell for these contacts to get good contact against the hanger. Now what I do is I will bend these over, kink that thing right down like that, create a little arch. I don't know if you can see this or not, but that's what we're doing. It goes pretty fast when you're not having to hold it for the camera. But when you're done, you can see that there's arches on the end of the motor. Alright, so now that we've got all that done, we're ready to start popping motors into cars. And this process right here would be very close to what you would have to do with a Viper once you would have the end bell and the armature and the magnets all kind of put together. It's essentially the same sort of situation. A number of years ago, right after we got the Viper project going, Dan Cronin out there at Viper figured out this little tool right here, and it really helps get the armature or the end bell assembly and whatever down into the car. And you can see there's like a little fork arrangement. Well, that kind of spans that little arch that we just made in the front of the end bell, and you'll see Tim use that right here, and it really helps get the thing started. And what that does is it kind of pushes the shoe hanger forward while you put a little bit of downward pressure on the motor, and that motor just pops right down into the car. Now at this point, I generally also put the magnets in the car, and I orient them and just make sure that they're oriented, put them into the cavity. And then get the clip on. And inspect it to make sure the clip is all seated all the way around. Looks good. Yep. All right, there's one. So it's really, at this point, goes pretty quick. Now you want to make sure, at least on these here, that the white magnet is up, and then so when you see this, the white magnet will be on the passenger side of the car. These motors also have a red indicator up here as to what the top is. You don't want to reverse this and put it down to where you would see this on the bottom of the car, because then when you go to put the axle in, the car will run backwards.
It's being tight. It's not right.
Yep, there you go. He puts a little downward pressure, gets the tool in, kind of gets the hanger out of the way, and that starts the bunny ears behind the hanger, and then you just pressure it right on in and you're ready to put traction magnets in. Now, unlike Viper traction magnets, these magnets don't have a front or a back. There's a notch on the front and the back, and it's unidirectional. With a Viper, you've only got a notch on one side. Alright, so now that we've got the motor in, the next operation will be getting the springs in, shoe springs, and the shoes. What this will do, it'll allow you to run the car on a 9-volt battery for the final step, which is getting the rear axle fitted properly. You need to run the car and listen to it, listen to the gear mesh to properly space the ring and pinion gear. So we'll obviously show you how to do that, but we're putting Viper shoes on these cars for now. These are going to be a drag racing version of the Super 7. And the standard shoe that we're putting on the SC model is a copy of the Tomy Super G Plus stepped shoe, which is real good for tall front tires, home tracks, things like that. It's a very forgiving shoe. But for all-out performance, you really want a ski shoe pretty much on any slot car. You just get a lot better electrical contact. On the Super G shoe, you can hook this part first and then push the shoe down. But with these ski shoes, you have to load it from the front and then get the hook underneath the shoe hanger. These shoes don't have enough travel up front to take being pushed down. If you do that, the front part of this shoe will get all bent out of shape trying to get it over that little tab that keeps the shoe in place. But this is definitely an operation you got to have some good tweezers for to handle the springs. Alright, we're going to get the back axles in the car. Like I say, some of this stuff's been pre-positioned in that, but it's real important for your better performance cars that you manually space these axles. Now, these axles do have a gear saver on it, but the way I'm putting them together, they really rely on the gear saver or the spacers themselves to take up the lash. I happen to use Wizards phosphor bronze spacers. I think that's what they are. They come in 003, 005, 010, and 015. I like them simply because they're easy to handle. Scale Engineering's got some that are stainless steel. They're a smaller OD, and you about got to handle them with tweezers, although they work just the same. I just happen to like the Wizard product here because I can handle them better. So what Tim's doing, we've determined that this particular crown gear and pinion setup needs two spacers with this type of deal. This is actually a Jag Hobbies 23 tooth crown gear mated with an 8 tooth pinion gear, and these are going to be set up for drag racing. Now, one thing we did do in pre-positioning these parts, normally when you put a gear saver on, you suck this gear saver up all the way against the crown gear. That's okay if you're running a 7-tooth pinion, but with an 8-tooth, since the diameter is larger, you have to move this out. So I'll put it all together, you know, with our little press over here, and then I'll come back with a manual tool and pull that away just enough so you don't get a lot of hang up. So in these cars, since they're drag racing, they're going to get a lot of wear and tear or whatever. I use both the gear saver and the spacer system to make sure that everything stays in place and nothing pops out and you know, you ruin a gear. I run everything on a 9-volt battery, and you just listen to it, and you can tell like if it's too tight. And then once we got that, then you press your other hub on. Now, just as a side note, don't ask me anything about where to get this stupid press system. This is all custom made. It suits what I do, and I did all the hard work. So if you want one, you know, look it up, find one, get all the things you need to, you know, make it suit yourself. But this is a kind of a one-off system. It's not for sale. I'm not going to talk about it or nothing. But it is a handy-dandy thing when you're doing a lot of production work rather than just the screw press, where you've got to sit there and screw stuff in and out. So, but you see, while we're talking here, the few minutes we've been talking, I mean, literally, we've gotten 6 or 7 cars done real quick. So once you've kind of got a roadmap of what really works, and it doesn't take much to get these things under final assembly.
I need 2 more tins, Terry.
Okay.
Turn this one.
Yep, there we go. All right. All right, we're coming down to the wire on getting these cars ready for testing. And we're going to put the tires on now and oil them. That's generally what I do, is in that order. And it doesn't take much oil either. Just, you know, I put 1 little drop on all the axle points. So you got the front axle, got the front bushing, gets a little bit of oil. Get the back axles, and then I put a drop of oil in the rear bushing. Puts you down inside in there.
Get to it.
I'd go into it this way here. Yeah, the O-rings are a little fiddly to get on. What I generally do is I'll load it on one side of the thing, and then get my fingernail in there and pull it over like a rubber band.
This one.
And you gotta fight with them a little bit. Let's watch this. Like this. See this? Hold it like that. Yep. And then I pull it with my fingernail.
Got oil.
And how many people does it take to put O-rings on the front of a slot car? And the back tires, these are double flange rear hubs. So one of the things that I always look at is, you know, these tires got kind of a front and a back, which is, they'll have a slick side, which is the top of the mold, and then a nice finished side, which would be going to the outside. So I always look, once I roll that on, and maybe get my fingernail around that outside flange just to seat it, because sometimes they don't seat very well. It just depends. These are pretty pliable tires. But yeah, we're going to build some drag cars here, and then we'll put them on the VRP dyno to test them. That would be kind of the proxy for track testing in that. That way I know if the motors are spinning up as fast as they should. Alright, so we got the VRP dynos set up. This particular unit has been modified to kind of suit my needs. It's different than what you get straight from him. Here again, don't ask me about this thing. I can't remember all the different things that were done, but anyway, it's basically running straight off the power supply, and so that's kind of what I do there. Just make sure the thing runs good. Now this one here, you can see it's got a tire problem, which is one reason why it's good to test. Most likely, it's just not seated on the rim very well. It could have a crooked hub. The axle might be crooked, the hub might be crooked, so let's take the tire off, put it back on, check that out and see what happens. Could be a bad tire, so just to test that theory, let's grab another tire off another car, stick it on there. Yep, bad tire. Bad tire. So it does help to test these things. So, you know, over time, once the cars run, the brushes will break in a little bit more and they'll probably get a touch faster. But that's for the drag cars. That's what I do. I run them on the dyno, and then I'll mark them with a number that I think represents a pretty good dyno number on it. Of course, there's no guarantees of track performance, but at least, you know, some way to get it to run it in a little bit. I don't have the space here at the house in the shop to set up a drag strip to really test them the way I'd like. I'm a little hemmed in, so this is my next best thing. Alright, so we got them all done, got them all tested. Then one of the last things I do is just go in here and polish the shoes a little bit. It's more of a important thing if you actually track test it, but I think it may help even on the drag cars to kind of break the factory scale that may be on the pickups, you know, for manufacturing any kind of oils or whatever might be on the shoe. Alright, so after that I'll just roll the tires on some tape and get some boxes, put them in there, and they are ready to race. Alright guys, thank you for joining me on this assembly video. A lot of the things that went into this particular car can be translated to other platforms that are very similar, such as the Bulldog and even Viper. I know Dan at Viper's done a number of assembly videos or whatever that are quite comprehensive, so I would suggest that if you are looking specifically for help on that platform, that you seek out his videos that are, you know, very car specific. But in general, this is just how we do our basic production in terms of you know, ganging things up and just making a little production line out of it. Alright, thank you. See you later.